Hello everybody. I hope everyone is doing well today, and welcome to our Fireside Chat with Mr. Elliott Haverlack. My name is Hayden Schultz. I'm a senior multimedia journalism student here, and I'm the former editor-in-chief for our student-run independent newspaper, The Rocket. I'm also a student content writer and assistant at University Marketing and Communication. So welcome everybody, and thanks again for joining us today. I want to thank a couple of people in the audience, our wonderful Dean, Dean Prasad Vemala. Thank you very much for showing up today and making events like this happen, where you get to speak to excellent people like Mr. Elliott Haverlack, one of our most distinguished alumni. I would also like to thank all of the students, faculty, and staff that are here today, and everyone else in our Firestarter Book Club. I would like to thank Elise Kaminsky as well, another MBA student, for assisting us and coordinating. So this is Mr. Elliott Haverlack today. He is an SRU alumnus, graduated in the class of 1980 with a degree in environmental geoscience. He is also a current SRU MBA student.
I am.
Yes, and he has held many, many leadership roles throughout his career. Just to name a few, he's had leadership roles at Ralston Purina, StarKist, and H.J. Heinz Company. He's also an entrepreneur with his wife, Rhonda. Together, they created Targeted Pets Treats, and he also has a consulting business called Unbundle It, focused on continuing education and consultancy with coaching. He is a 3-time author, most recently of Firestarter. Firestarter reflects themes and ideas of lifelong learning, leadership, both in professional careers as well as their personal lives. We'll have a conversational format when we'll go through three sections and then a Q&A. First, we'll talk with Mr. Haverlack about his early life, his time at SRU, and his career in leadership. We'll then move on to his recent book, Firestarter, and then we will finish with what it's like being an MBA student at SRU.
That's fun.
So with that being said, thank you to everyone as well from WSRU TV being here to coordinate and help record this event. So thank you guys. So Mr. Haverlack, shall we get started?
We should.
Excellent. So could you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your early years of life were like?
So I call Slippery Rock my home because it's where I really formulated most of my beliefs, my early beliefs. But I was born in Monroeville. I was a Gateway Gator, if there's any Gateway Gators out there. I did not make it through high school there. My family had a little cottage on Slippery Rock Creek near Keister. Any of you know the area well. And that's where I spent my summers. My family bought a small mom and pop grocery store on the corner of Route 8 and Branston Road. If you're out in that part of town, you'll see this little house that's there. In the back corner, little window, that was my bedroom, because we lived upstairs, and our store was on the first floor. And I attended Slippery Rock Area High School. I was the first student in the high school history to come to the college and take classes before I graduated. And much to my chagrin and the chagrin of the staff, it was not well welcomed, because I obviously didn't go through proper protocols. I thought I had. And I was considered a truant until we got it all worked out, and we were just fine with that. And then I just continued on at the university. It was a state college at the time. I did end up in the environmental science, track A, which was air and water pollution. But I held many different majors. I did what I call a weave. I went right through all the schools and started out as a chemistry major because I love science. Then went on to business. Then went to recreation. Then I went to undeclared. And then I ended up in environmental science. So that's how my journey went through the university here.
Excellent. So you earned your undergraduate degree in environmental science. What was campus life like when you were a student in the late 70s, and what was it like doing the weave, moving in and out of all the different schools?
Well, campus life here was very collegial. It was a family. I, being a commuter student, I didn't get quite the experience that many of you that are on campus. And I would tell anybody, even if you live in town, you should come on campus and live. It's really, I missed out a lot on my college experience because of that. The campus was beautiful then. I think that I was thinking today as I was walking around, there used to be all these paths because no one ever took the sidewalks when I went to school. It looks like people are using the sidewalks a lot more than they did when I was here. So that's a good thing. Bravo on that, because we had all these dirt paths going from every class. I don't know if anybody's around long enough to remember those paths, but they were everywhere here. And so, but it was a great community. When I found a home in environmental science, I really made some great friendships. And we were a small group. I think there was 12 of us that graduated in that discipline that year. But we all had each other's backs, and we got to do a lot of work out in the field, which is one of the things I loved about the major, was we actually got to go out and experience instead of just classroom learning.
Gotcha. And do you have any standout memories at your time at SRU, whether they were personal or educational?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this morning, and I mentioned earlier that I had a little cottage. It was really a one-room cement block building with no heat. That's where I lived. And we decided to go out onto Slippery Rock Creek and take a canoe trip as part of one of my classes. And there was another fellow from, I think he was from the Philadelphia area. He was not an outdoorsman, and he and I were both pretty good-sized fellows. And we were yucking it up in Slippery Rock Creek, and the professor said, "You guys are going to tip that canoe." And it was January, and we tipped the canoe. And luckily, we got to my cement block house and found some clothes to put on, because we would have frozen, I think. But we were warned, and we didn't listen. So probably one of my fun memories of my time here. So
excellent, excellent. So throughout your book and a lot of your life, you emphasize how mentorship is absolutely crucial for growth. Who influenced your career the most during your time at SRU, and how do you pay that forward?
So there immediately 4 names come out to mind, all professors here at the university. 3 of them that were in the sciences division. One was my advisor, Murray Shelgren. Murray was an interesting fellow. He told me that I was the best of all his students when I wanted to try, but I didn't always want to try. And so I always remembered that. Bill Sayer, who went by WG, Bill Sayer, I think he still lives in the area actually. He was another mentor of mine. He told me that my haberdashery was not acceptable, and so I didn't get much better at it, but I got a little better after that. And then David Taylor, who also lives in the area still, his wife just passed away a couple years ago. He was such an unbelievable specialist in analytical chemistry, and really details mattered, and it was such an interesting learning. And then probably the most important of the 4 was a friend, Don Kelly. He just passed away last year at the age of 93. He was a professor in the history department, and I never had him as a professor, but he became a real mentor to my life, and really I stayed up in touch with him up until his passing. So we went to his 90th birthday party not too long ago before he passed. So they all, he told me, "Have you looked in the mirror? Do you realize what a giant you are? Why are you so afraid?" And I hadn't thought of myself as being particularly big until that moment. So those are 4 people that did wonderful things to help me. And the mentorship here was phenomenal. I've talked to a lot of people that have gone to other schools, and I have not found anybody else that has the experience that I have, that I got here, with the dedicated educators that are here that truly care and connect to the students. And for them to remember me 40 years later and me to remember them 40 years later, I think is fairly profound. So, actually 45, I think. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, folks, in case you hadn't noticed.
Excellent, excellent. So what advice would you give to a student who is seeking a mentor?
So the 2 things to look for in a mentor are, number 1, somebody who loves you enough to tell you when you're screwing up. That's the number 1 thing. Secondly, and almost as closely, is you've got to have somebody who shares your values. You don't want to cozy up to someone that's going to tell you things that, make you feel uncomfortable. You've all been there, right? You've had that person say, "Well, you can do this." And you go, "No, I can't do that because that's not right." that should be a red alarm, five alarm fire for you saying, okay, this isn't the person I want to be around, because there's a lot of people who are going to share your values. And again, being told when you're making a big mistake is so important. And if someone truly loves you, love doesn't mean always being nice. Love means telling people hard truths when they need to hear them. And look at me, I've needed a lot of hard truth talking over my life. So, but find a mentor to do that for you, and you will go far. And they're right here on this campus. I promise you. There's one that you maybe haven't met them yet. The names have changed, but they're here. They're just waiting for you to connect with them.
And what would you say for incoming students, and mostly undergraduate, who might feel fearful about finding their way, finding a mentor, and finding what their dream career field is going to be?
You're a heck of a lot better than you think you are. Everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, and you can do it, and you will do it. Don't ever let fear stop you from following your dreams. There's two things that crush us, right? It's fear and greed. Those are the two things that are going to derail you quicker than anything. And you are good enough, you are strong enough, and you are smart enough. I promise you that. And you have plenty. You don't need more. It'll come. Just let it happen. Believe in yourself. Your instincts will follow you. And I also would tell you that some sort of a spiritual connection, whatever it might be for you, is really important. Has been in my life.
Excellent, thank you. Mm-hmm. So after SRU, you built a career in leadership and entrepreneurship. Could you tell us a little bit about your professional experience and what got you started in this field?
Well, I graduated and realized I didn't have a job. And I had made the unwise decision, and I say this a little tongue-in-cheek, but to get married without a job. For no other reason other than I wanted to get married. That's what you were supposed to do, so I did. And realized that I had nothing to look forward to because I didn't love myself enough. And I didn't deserve the love of somebody else because I didn't love myself enough, and I had to learn that the hard way. I would tell you that make a plan for yourself. First of all, get a moral compass for yourself. Are you all familiar with the moral compass? So it's a virtual waymaker that's going to guide your whole life for you. It's really simple. You have your core values. Those are the things that are so important to you. You're not going to let those be slipped. And then have some goals for yourself and make them aspirational. This might be a little heavy for this conversation, but I like to stand and say I'm one day away from death, and I want to look back at my life and say, what do I want it to look like? That's a heavy thing to say, I get that, but it's super, super important. Do that, and then start to build the building blocks to get there. And remember that there are going to be pitfalls, and there are going to be stumbling blocks, and the path that you might think you're going to take may not be the right one. And be smart enough and self-reliant enough to realize this was a mistake. It's not the end of the world. One of the things I ask people when I mentor them, I said, is this going to matter in 100 years? And the answer is almost always no. There's only a few things that matter in 100 years. And then when you get that, then you go to 10, right? And this is kind of a bit of a weave. I do that a lot. We were talking about weaving. But when I coach people, the first thing I do is I have them write down the 10 worst things in their life. And I put them in an envelope, and I have them address it to themselves. And then I'm long gone a year later. If it's not a long-term engagement, I mail them the 10 things. And they almost always call me and say, none of these things are problems anymore. And I said, I told you.
So you spoke a little bit about finding your own path, and early on in your life you might not pick the right direction the first time. So what was your first job, and how did you end up getting there?
Well, this is a rather personal story, but I don't mind sharing, and I've shared it with many in my life. So I told you I was afraid. This will get a little bit, maybe another little heavy spot, but I was unable to get a job, and I went on my 23rd birthday. I was sitting in a parking lot on the north side of Pittsburgh, scared to death because I was going in for a job interview, a job I knew I wasn't going to get because I hadn't gotten any of the other ones. And a voice came to me and said, "Why are you so afraid?" It was God. Now, some people don't believe in talking to God, but he talks to me all the time, and that's just, we won't get into deep there, but he told me, "You're strong enough, you're smart enough, you're brave enough," and by golly, I convinced myself after he gave me that little nod that by the time I walked into the building, I said, "I'm not leaving here without a job." And almost every student that I graduated with, and remember there was only a few of us in my discipline, they're all there because none of them had gotten a job either. And before that day, the competition would have crushed me. I would have gone, "Oh no." I knew it. I said, "Well, I feel bad for you guys." Didn't say this to them, but to myself, I'm getting this job because it's mine. And by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in a meeting with a senior person, and he said, "We like you a lot." And I said, "Well, good. I'd like you to hire me." And he said, "Well, that's a little presumptuous of you." And I said, "Well, I think that if I ask you nicely, you'll hire me." And he said, "Well, if you pass the physical on Monday, you're hired." And I said, "Can I get the physical today?" "Well, I don't know," he says. Well, I get the physical at 3 o'clock, passed, and I promised myself that I would never be without a job the rest of my life, as long as I wanted one, and I never was. And it just took off from there because then that self-confidence. And that first job was at a bakery. It was midnight shift. I took midnight shift. I got Tuesdays and Saturdays off. It was really fun. It was a union shop. I could teach a course on the dysfunction of that business. Management hated the union. Guess what? The union guys hated management. And guess whose fault it was? It was the management's fault because they failed to lead the people. And if you're afraid and you don't like each other, terrible things happen. And that business atrophied, and I learned so much there. And but I stuck it out for 9 years, and ended up moving to Philadelphia, and then I made a switch to H.J. Heinz, and that was kind of a defining moment in my career. I moved from New Jersey to Biloxi, Mississippi, of all places. And what a culture shock that was. But I loved Biloxi, absolutely loved it. I saw things people treated very poorly. Broke my heart. And I promised I would change it. And so I went on an 11-year career path at Heinz to change the course of the company and change the course of the people. And I was rewarded by being on the board of 2 divisions of Heinz when I was 39. And I looked in the mirror and didn't like the person looking back at me and said, "I'm going to leave and I'm going to go do something else." And so I went to a family-owned business in Meadville. I know somebody this morning was from Meadville. It was a 68-year-old family business. We went from being what they referred to themselves as the punchline of a joke in the industry. We were the 6th largest pet food company in the world when I left in 12 years. And then I decided I'd had enough of that, and so I decided to start this little consulting business that you were so kind to talk about. And my reason for doing the consulting business was I wanted to really help people. And I thought I could connect in ways, and I ended up with 35 clients over the period of time that I had that business, and I just shut it down in December. Because my wife and I are fully committed to philanthropy the rest of our lives. So, no more work for Elliott.
And moving on to the book that you recently wrote, Firestarter. Mm-hmm. That's your 3rd book. It's a culmination of all of the experience that you've gained throughout your life about leadership. Could you tell us a little bit about what Firestarter is about in your own words?
Sure. So it all came from PT. That's physical therapy. I had a rotator cuff repair. I decided since I didn't have anything else to do, I'd write a book. And it was going to be called something, a metaphor about the dog food industry. And I was doing the wheels, and the guy next to me says, "There's difference between a manager and a leader." And I said, "Why don't you tell me?" And he said, "Well, a manager puts out fire and a leader ignites them." And I said, "Where did you get that?" He said, "Well, I don't know." So I Googled it and couldn't find it anywhere, so I stole it shamelessly and said, okay, fire starter, that's, and it's really a servant leadership. It's about lifting the entire team up so that it sustains way beyond your time there. That's the impetus of the book. It's all about how to treat people in such a way that they become empowered, because there's so many that are so afraid. They hadn't been fortunate enough to have fear removed from their life. And so many that are so afraid, and this whole notion of greed and fear go hand in hand, and the fear causes greed a lot, unfortunately, because I don't have enough. And I tell people today, when I talk to them, I said, everybody runs out of time before they run out of money. Trust me. And I promise you that's true. You're going to run out of time before you run out of money. So I know that's hard when you're young and you're starting out, but you'll get there and you'll understand that. Wherever you end up in life, time is a precious commodity. Use it. Don't waste it. Go out and do good. You're going to love it. It's so rewarding. It took me a while to get there. I didn't quite understand it at first, but I figured it out.
So it's a very interesting origin story about PT and how you reached the culmination to write Firestarter. So was there a particular audience you had in mind when you were writing this book?
Yeah, the people in this room. I love kids. I was so screwed up. I wish there'd been somebody to help me. And so if I can help one of you, if I can give one nugget to one person in this room, it will be a great day. And that's what it's all about. And I'm only one person. I can only speak to so many people. And so the books will stand the test of time. And if you get one nugget out, if you read the book and you get one nugget, it was worth everything for me to write it for one person. Somebody asked me, well, how many do you care? And I said, I don't care if it's one or a million. But if it's one that changes one person's life, then it was worth everything. So.
Excellent, excellent. And in your view, what does it mean to be a fire starter in today's business world?
So it's having a combination of having the courage to believe in the mission and the vision, so much so that you create a culture that is so powerful that it's like a political campaign. You know how if you ever work on a political campaign, you're just so sure that your person's going to win. That's what it is in business, right? And the good thing about business is it's not a political campaign, right? It's business. And the funny thing is that if you adopt the right mindset, it's easy because nobody else has figured it out, right? They're all out trying to make a quarterly budget. They're all out trying to do this, that, and the other thing. Throw all that away. I mean, you're going to have, obviously, people you're going to have to answer to along the way, but always look for the long view. And if you're in a company that shares your values and you're working in the right place, they'll understand it and they'll give you the latitude to explore and go to the next level. So being a fire starter means lighting a fire in an organization or in an area that extends way beyond you. The people that you leave behind take that fire that they all started with you, and they stoke it and continue to keep it going so that it exceeds your wildest expectations. It's kind of like we talked about it earlier, the butterfly effect. The book, if you haven't read it, you should read it. I don't get any rights, by the way, for recommending the butterfly effect, but it's all about these tiny little things that make such huge differences in our life. And it's that simple. And my dad was a great fella, and he taught me never forget where you came from. You know better than anybody else. You put your pants on one leg at a time. You got to brush your teeth in the morning because your breath stinks. All those wonderful things, and it's true for all of us. And sometimes we get caught up in, when I was at Heinz, I lived in a world of limousines. I lived in a world where somebody did my clothes for me. And And I didn't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want someone to go wash my car. I'd rather have a dirty car than have somebody wash it for me. It might be right for somebody else, but it wasn't right for me. So that's what it means. Is be true to yourself. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I sprinted for a long time, got tired, got a little burned out, and set a course. Life's the most important journey you're ever going to take. You wouldn't get in your car if you didn't know where you were going. You didn't know how you were going to get there, and you didn't take care of the car, right? You maintain it. You got to maintain your body. So I say body, mental, physical, soul, spiritual. All those three things are important. There's a great Venn diagram. I think I can see it in my mind. And in that center, that's the sweet spot. You get those three things right, whatever it might be, it really becomes amazingly liberating and enlightening.
So throughout your career, were there any specific moments that you thought, this is it, this is where I discover that I am a fire starter or a true leader with a growth mindset?
Well, I think probably, that's a great question. I think probably I wanted to be an educator. And I'm going to be super honest with you guys. I was too greedy at the time because I could make a lot more money in business than I could be in education. And I was really struggling with that. And I had a young lady that I hired. She was the first person I ever hired that was born in the 70s. I felt incredibly old when I hired her. And she was an unbelievable talent. And about 10 years into our time together, she asked me some questions. And then we got into this conversation, and she goes, you seem unhappy. And I said, well, I was supposed to be an educator, and I didn't do it. And she says, you've been teaching us forever. You've taught more people than you'll ever know. And that's kind of when it clicked for me. I said, wow, this was my calling. I'm teaching through business, not teaching through a formal education. Though I did teach a semester at a community college because I wanted to do it. And it was a wonderful experience. I would love to do it again. But unfortunately, my lifestyle didn't work well. They didn't want to change the semesters to meet my lifestyle, so I didn't stick with it. But that's when it happened, I'd say.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, could you share a piece of advice for students, from the book based on your leadership journey? If there was a specific example or instance when you were working on one of these companies that you think might resonate with students?
A specific instant. I'm not sure I can come up with a specific instant, but I would tell you the thing that I would share with all of you is beyond what we've already talked about, which is making sure you have a plan, making sure that you surround yourself with people that share your values. Have the courage to go with your gut. Have the courage to go with your gut. If you've done your due diligence, you're going to be just fine with it. Of course, it's scary. If your heart's not broken half the time when you were a leader because of things you had to do because it was for the good of the company, you're probably not the right leader. It's okay. You can agonize. The problem is that when you're at the top, it's lonely as hell because there's nobody to tell, right? Unless you have a coach. And see, when I was coming up, coaches weren't a thing, right? I did a blog on coaching before coaching was popular, and I had a business card and it said I was a coach. And people actually mocked me and said, what in the heck's a coach? And then I told them about Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs and how they'd gone 2-14 and he went 7-0 his first year because the coach made that much difference. And now coaching, of course, that aged well, by the way. It's one of those things that aged really well, right, that comment. So I've had a few comments that haven't aged as well. But believing in yourself, going with your gut, and making sure you find yourself somebody that you can help. Those are the most important pieces of advice that I can give you.
Awesome. And how do you apply all of these lessons to your daily life?
So I'm incredibly disciplined. It may not look like it, but I am. I exercise 6 hours a week. I know it seems a bit hard to be, but think how big I'd be if I didn't. And I commit to education every day. When I get up in the morning, I have quiet time, and then in the evening when I go to bed, I think about what I learned and what did I teach. And if I have not learned something and not taught something that day, I consider it a bad day. So insane curiosity is something we don't talk enough about. You should be so curious about everything. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. When they say there's no bad questions, there aren't any bad questions. The only bad question is the one that wasn't asked. And for those of you that tend to be more introverted than I am, you have really good ideas. And I know you want someone to ask you. They might not be smart enough to know to ask you. I didn't know to ask. I lost half my team because they were introverts. I never asked them. And then when I learned I should ask them, man, did we unlock an unbelievable, powerful team of people that had before left been silenced because they hadn't had the courage to ask, or they weren't wired that way. So, yeah.
Now, how have these morals and daily routines that you have and practice every day, how have they evolved throughout your life, especially as you got further along in your career and today?
Well, certainly as I've aged, long view for me now is not quite as long as it was 10 years ago. I mean, people get a little uncomfortable when I talk about this, but I look at life as 4 quarters. And I was a big football fan for many, many, many years. And I'm in the 4th quarter. I know that. I embrace it. I'm fine with it. I wasted the 1st quarter. And then I'm so grateful that none of you have wasted your 1st quarter. You're so far ahead of where I was at this time. Think about that. Think about the fact that I was a schlepper, knucklehead, that hadn't done anything, and you all are here. And the fact that you're here interested enough to listen to a 67-year-old fellow talk means you're far ahead of where I was at this point in time in my life. So think about what you can do because you didn't waste your 1st quarter. And I had to work really hard to get the 2nd quarter. So as I've evolved, I've realized that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I don't have to run after everything. Things aren't near as desperate as I sometimes thought they were. And I'd say that remember, particularly when there's conflict, to seek to understand why the other person is so conflicted, what's happening in their life. And when you learn that and you take the time to really understand the motivations, particularly maybe somebody that you've not met before, and you have this interaction, try to take the time to understand. Remember that we all look a little different, but what you don't see is just as disparate as what you do see. And there's so much more that we don't see about how we think and our experiences and where we come from and what we're going through in life. And most of the time you'll find out if there's disagreement, there's something going on that that you haven't seen yet, or you just didn't take the time to, and there's always enough time to help somebody else. Always enough time to help somebody else.
Thank you, Mr. Haverlack. So moving on to our last section here. You returned to SRU to pursue your MBA. Even after decades of experience, what brought you back to the Rock?
Well, this question was asked earlier today, and so I will tell you the truth, because I thought about rehearsing a really nice, but I was asked to do some work with the business school and promote it a bit, and I realized I hadn't taken it. And I woke up one morning during my quiet time and I said, how am I going to recommend this when I haven't done it? And so I called Prasad up and I said, hey, can I be a student? He goes, sure, why not? And I'm kind of regretting it it's a little harder than I thought it was. Well, actually, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But I am enjoying it. And I know that at 67, and I'm hoping that I can get through before my 68th birthday. And it's going to be a wonderful journey. I'm going to learn so much. And the thing that I've learned is the world's going to be okay. You guys are great. Get so much, so many old people are grumpy and grouchy and, want to tell you this isn't any good. It was better when it's not. It's great right now. You guys are doing a great job. Just keep doing it. Love each other. Love someone you don't particularly like. It's okay. Learn from them. Find out why you don't like them. Peel the onion back a little bit and get to know people. You'll be so enriched as a result. If nothing else, you'll learn a different view. And there are some people that are not great folks. I mean, let's be honest, there's good and evil and everything. And learn to understand that. But make sure you give it a fair chance first.
So what's it like coming on with all of this professional experience, re-entering the classroom, and something that's different from what you studied in your undergrad?
Well, it is, again, I told this story earlier today too. I started an analytics class, and my class started on Monday. I looked at it on Fridays. I wanted to get ahead of it. And I emailed the professor on Saturday and said, I think I've made a terrible mistake. I don't belong in your class. Because I am ill-equipped to do what you want to be done in this class. And she was so kind. She wrote me a note back and said, a lot of people feel that way. Don't worry, I will teach you. And I think 7 weeks in, right? 7 weeks into my 8. I got a 97 so far, and I don't say that because it was hard. It was hard work. I'm not sure I'm gonna finish up as well as I started because it's getting really hard now. This last week's going to be tough, but yeah, it's so different. There's so many more tools available to you, so many more opportunities. The thing that hasn't changed though is the professors are awesome here. And again, the names are different than they were when I was here, but they're just as awesome and just as dedicated, and they want you to win. I promise you that. They're not here getting rich. They're here dedicated to help the world be a better place. And you are going to be that product that's going to help them be able to, when their careers are over, look back and say, wow, this has been great.
So are there any lessons from classmates, from any interactions that you've had so far that have influenced your perspective, or from professors as well?
Well, one of the things that's kind of funny is y'all write these long paragraphs. When I was a kid, and I'm a writer, you look at my book, you won't find a paragraph in there that's more than 4 or 5 sentences, because I was taught 2 sentences is a paragraph, more than 5 is a book, right? You got to split it up. And evidently that's not the case anymore. I get these epistles from my classmates, and I'm going, do you guys all write like this? And they go, yeah, we all write like this. I'm just going, is that the way it is? Because I don't know. I'm old enough that when I was young, we put 2 spaces after a period. They don't do that anymore, right? I also learned that I have these teams that I'm on, a couple of my classes, and everybody's at different spots. Some of them are just out of college and went right on to their masters. Some have been in the business world, and then there's one old coot like me, right? And everybody has such interesting experiences and an interesting perspective, but we're all there for the same reason, and that is to better ourselves. Isn't that interesting? At 67, I'm going to be better as a result of going through this class. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that other than be better, but that's a pretty important thing too.
So lastly, what advice would you give to students right now who are in these programs in the College of Business in regard to failure? What lessons can you give to them in terms of winning and learning?
The only person that never failed is a person that didn't do anything, right? That's number one. Failure's okay. Embrace it and learn from it. We talked about John Wooden earlier today, and he talks about the fact that failure, y'all know who John Wooden was? He was the coach of the UCLA Bruins. He won 10 national championships in 11 years, 3 years undefeated, and was known more for the development of people than he was even for his coaching time and his his view on life. He has a pyramid of success that I invite you all to take a look at on the internet when you get a minute. It's really good stuff. But he always said, courage, failure's not fatal. You're going to be okay. It's going to happen for you. Also, Jack Welch, who's another person that I was very blessed to have met in my life, would tell you that if you don't try, and because you're worried of failure, then you're never going to do anything well with your life. And so embrace failure. If anybody's a baseball fan, if you go to the plate and you strike out twice, or you don't get on base twice out of 3 times, and you play long enough, you're probably going to be in Cooperstown. But that means you failed the objective 2 times out of 3, right? Because every time you go to the plate, you're supposed to get on base. So if you didn't get on base, only get on base 1 time out of 3, you're a Hall of Famer. So failure is okay. Just make sure that you are in an environment where the people love you enough to embrace that too. Because unfortunately, just because your first boss or maybe your second boss is the boss, it doesn't mean that they understand and they're a great leader. They might just be in the position and know they're probably struggling just as much as you are. The other thing I would tell you is be insanely curious. Don't ever, if you've got a question in your head but you're afraid to ask it anyhow. I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings with people and they'll come up, at the end of the meeting, they'll kind of mill around a little bit, and all of a sudden you go, I just want to ask you a question. I said, well, we had a meeting a couple minutes ago. What's going on? Well, I didn't want to say it in front of everybody else. And then they'd ask this really great question. And I'd say, do you realize how many people missed out because you didn't ask that question in front of the larger group? I mean, it's an opportunity to grow, right? So.
Definitely. And speaking of asking questions, now it's our time to move into our audience Q&A section. So I'll have Dr. Allison Pyrich here take the microphone and pass it around to the audience.
I see a hand up in the back.
Excellent. We already got one. Here we go.
Where's we going?
All the way
Straight
up to the back. That lady right there.
Oh, okay. All right, so when you speak into this microphone, you got double mics. Now move this here.
Hi,
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Alani.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, how important has networking been to you, and what advice do you have for building professional relationships?
I think that all those sorts of things need to be done with the understanding that you've found a person in that relationship that you trust and that shares your values. And as we talked a little earlier, we'll tell you when you're wrong. It's the hardest thing for people to do is tell someone they love that they're wrong. And I don't care how good any of us is, we're all prone to make mistakes. We all have a blind spot somewhere in our psyche that has us missing an opportunity to be enriched. And I also would say that when you join in a group of folks, again, make sure that you become a close-knit group. And if you don't feel comfortable with the group, get out of the group and find somebody else to collaborate with. Does that answer your question? Thanks.
All right, where am I headed to next?
They're going to move you all over the room.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, my name is Nasir. In terms of business skills, I imagine everybody in here is going to be doing something completely different. What do you think are essential skills that apply across the board? It doesn't matter what field you're in.
The essential skills would be to, I don't know that it's a skill as much, but believing in yourself is probably the most important thing. Understanding and being willing to learn and be educated. Embrace the fact that you're not the smartest person in the room. And find out what you're really good at and accentuate that, and the things you're not good at, see if you can become good at them. And find a mentor to help you with those things that you want. I was not a finance guy for many, many years, and I had a boss who was not a people person. I was a people person. We were a perfect team. I taught him how to treat people with dignity and respect, and he taught me finance. And as a result of that, I can read a balance sheet upside down. I know a cash flow statement inside out, and it's a skill set that's really helped me along the way. The vast majority of the people you'll meet in business have no idea what a balance sheet's like. They don't understand how cash flow works, and the number one thing businesses fail on is the fact they run out of cash. It is the number one reason they fail. So if you could, for a skill set, learn that. Learn finance. There's a Motley Fool workbook. You guys ever heard of the Motley Fool? It's a little dated now, but I'm sure it's fine. There's a personal workbook that you can get, and I don't get any royalties or rights from Motley Fool. And it'll walk you through your personal inventory of how to understand finance in your personal level, and it builds up, it crescendos up. Once you learn your own personal, that's going to help you, by the way, and then as you move up. The other thing I would tell you is there's a gentleman by the name of Patrick Lencioni that I would invite you all to get to know. Maybe not personally, but know his work. He is a foremost educator on team building, and I got the very great blessing of meeting him and spending a couple days with him many, many years ago, and I became an evangelist for his work. And have you all heard of brand ambassadors? You all heard that term? Have you heard of a brand evangelist? The difference between an ambassador and an evangelist? An ambassador will tell you, if you ask them, an evangelist can't not tell you, right? They have to tell you the good news about how great it is when you trust everybody on the team, how great it is that you can have conflict that's productive, how great it is that you can hold each other accountable because everybody trusts each other and no one thinks that your motivations are not great. He's got a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a management fable. It's the easiest read you'll ever read. Hopefully it's over at the library. Pick it up, read it. You're going to love the book. He's got 5 or 6 of them. I've read them all. I'm an evangelist for the guy, to be honest with you. So does that help answer some of your questions? Probably a little more than you wanted.
Wonderful. All right, over here.
Hi, my name's Jasmine. I wasn't going to say anything, but you inspired me with your last bit.
All right, Jasmine.
I want to say you said Purina was the dog food brand that you were working with, and how you said about going from a big corporation that you didn't really enjoy the atmosphere to the family-owned. Can you just touch a little bit on kind of what your experience was, like with the differences between them now that, I mean, Purina is such a big brand, but they're still like the family-owned brand that you started with?
Yeah, so it's different. Corporations can be great places to work. And I started out, believe it or not, I worked for Purina, but I did not work for the pet food division. I was in this bakery that I worked for was owned by Purina. And on my resume, it said I worked for Purina. And I got hired by H.J. Heinz, who, by the way, had a dog food company at the time. And they hired me solely because I worked for Purina. And I tried to tell them that I didn't have any pet food experience, and they said, doesn't matter, just the fact that Purina's on your resume. And so the problem with corporate America is there's a quarterly focus. You have to answer to Wall Street. And when you have to answer to Wall Street, sometimes leadership makes bad decisions. And when you work for a family-owned business, there's a lot of bad decisions there too, but it's not this artificial. And I felt like I had a little more ability to connect with my people when I was in a family-owned business. I connected with my teams I'll tell you a kind of a funny story. It might actually be in the book, I can't remember, but I had a guy who worked for a different department, and he came to work for me, and we hit it off really well when he started working for me. We didn't like each other all that much when he didn't work for me. And I was doing his interview, or his first year evaluation, and he said, I got to tell you, I hated your guts when I came to work for you. And I said, well, that's good. We started with at least something. Emotion's a good thing I can start with. He said, but you know, he says, I get it now. He says, I couldn't stand the fact that you always made your team look so good. And I said, I'll make them look good. I just got the best people, and they made it happen. And but the culture was so overwhelming. In my book at the beginning, I talk about meeting some of the people that I worked with at Heinz that I didn't care for. And I thought they were just bad people, and they weren't. They were great people stuck in a horrible culture. And it was, I think I said, I'm not sure if it was here in this form, but I said, eat or get eaten. That's how it was like. And if you weren't willing to eat. So then when I went to this family business, by the way, I called it La La Land when I first got there, because no one cared. Like, and we had to go from the other end of the continuum, right? We had to bring up the accountability. We had to bring up the results orientation. And I would tell you it's a lot easier from my perspective to go from La La Land to a more disciplined environment than it is to go from this authoritarian hierarchical thing that was so mind-numbing that it stifled me. And so that's why I went. And now, are you familiar with PE companies? Private equity? So I don't really work anymore, but I'm on the board of a couple of private equity companies. And private equity is an interesting enigma. I would say that some are good and some are bad. And if you decide to get into private equity, make sure you get with a good one. I've never worked for a private equity company, but I've run companies that private equity companies owned. And I always was taken with the fact that in their mindset, it didn't matter if it was dog food or potato chips or antennas for cars. They just wanted to make money. And that always bothered me a bit. I couldn't work in something that I didn't love. And so I love companion animals. I love the whole idea of nurturing dogs and cats and giving them a better life. And therefore, but I'm perfectly comfortable with allowing them to make money while I'm having a lot of fun. And I feel like I bring a level of reality. So I'm on the board of a company that makes supplements for dogs. Now, did anybody know that was a thing? We're just having a ball. But it's all about people. I share with you, this is a bit of a pivot, but I'll share this with you because I think it's pretty important. So one of the unintended consequences, and I won't get into politics, but one of the unintended consequences of the new administration is there's a lot of fear in a lot of minority communities because of, being moved out of the country, or removed. And we had 48 Latino families that we were feeding as employees of ours, and they were afraid to come to work. And it broke my heart. And I said, we need to hire attorneys because they can't afford them. And we need to find out whether they got a problem or they don't have a problem. And one of the things that our country loves to do is scare the hell out of everybody. So what we found out was out of 48 families, 47 of them were just fine. One guy had a problem, and we had to deal with that. But the other 47 were just fine. And I thought if the company could invest a few $100,000 to give 47 families peace, isn't that the right thing to do? And we got rewarded. The employees stuck with us and through it, and they came to work and they did great jobs. And that built a loyalty with them because they never would have been able to afford an attorney. But because we had so many at one time, and we were able to do it at a fairly reasonable economy. But isn't that the right thing to do? Isn't it horrible to think that, Dad thinks he's going to go to work and he's not going to come home because he got hauled out of the country? And again, this isn't politics. It's not. It's human. It's human beings. I happen to frankly think that some of the things we're doing are okay, but sometimes it goes too far. It's that pendulum. I don't know if we talked about it in here earlier, but it's that pendulum swings too far one way or the other. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I got off on a weave again, so sorry about that.
All right, I'm going to weave one more time because I think we have time for one more question.
All right.
So, hello, I'm Anthony.
Anthony, nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
What's your shirt say?
Oh, it's
I deserve NBA money?
yes, it's a Caitlin Clark shirt.
All right, I'm a big WNBA fan. I was crushed when my Indiana Fever went down to the Aces, but the Aces look like they're going to pull it off here. They're up 3-0 against the Mercury, right? Well, good for you. Anyhow.
Yeah, so my question actually builds a lot on your previous answer. We were saying a lot about how corporate America is, of course, purely money-driven. And my question was, do you have any advice for students that are looking to succeed in corporate roles and keep that moral compass at the same time?
Yeah, so I may have misspoke a bit. I think there's a lot of companies that are changing. They're realizing that are you guys familiar with the triple bottom line theory? So it's people, profit, planet, right? I think smart companies are realizing that it's way past time to do that. So I think the good news is it's going to get better. And if you get with a corporation that doesn't care, have the courage to go find somewhere else to work. But don't just walk away. Find something else first. You don't want to be unemployed. There are plenty of companies out there. It's changing every day. It's way better than it was when I was a young lad. So remember, it's people first, planet second, profit third. And I promise you, I have so many experiences when we took people and planet first that the profits soared. Unbelievable. I had a passion for the environment, and one of the things, I had a young fellow come to work for me, and he was really into the environment, and I said, why don't you start a green initiative here at our company? And he said, well, what would it look like? And I said, what would you do if it was your company? And he told me. I said, well, that sounds good to me. Let's start with that and see how it goes. And are you guys familiar with LEED certification in environmental? So we went from being a terrible environmental record to getting a LEED Silver Award for sustainability. And I would tell you that we put $4 or $5 million in the bottom line in doing so, because we were throwing our profits in the landfill. And when we realized that we were throwing all our profits in the landfill, we helped the planet, we helped our people, and we started these community projects where we would clean up the rivers in town, and we started a recycling center for town. The town didn't have one, so we hosted a recycling center, and all these things. Guess what happened? People in town got to hear, wow, what's going on in that company, and they wanted to come to work for us. And we had the best employees in the entire community, because they were attracted to something that they found intrinsically valuable to them. Money's important, but it's not near as important as these other things. You'll find as you move through your career, very few people ever leave for money. They don't quit their job, they quit their boss because they don't like the culture. And I thought that was folly when I first heard it when I was a young man. And having left 2 jobs in my life, both times I left because it was a cultural thing for me. It had changed, and I didn't feel, I have a business card thing. I look at the business card and I say, do I like my name being on that business card? And if I can't say yes, I don't want to have my name on that business card anymore. So I make my own business cards up. No, I'm kidding.
All right, thank you everybody for those wonderful questions. Thank you very much. So as we close it out today, I would like to thank the entire College of Business for everything awesome that we do here. And specifically, I'd like to thank Dean Vamla for continuing to foster this student-oriented culture and really just giving these awesome opportunities to us. So thank you very much for building on our incredible pillar here at SRU. And most importantly, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Haverlack. Thank you. Now, thank you so much for coming here and sharing this invaluable wisdom. We all appreciate it so much, and it means a ton to all of us. On behalf of everyone here in the student body, whether it's leadership, clubs and organizations, we all thank you so much.
The best opportunities are when everybody wins, right? my wife and I, halfway through the day, blown away. And this has just made it even better. So we thank you for everything you've done for us and allowing us to be part of this family that is such a special one. Just remember these days. They're going to take you through a lot of storms ahead. And I always say at Slippery Rock, it didn't open a lot of doors for me. I'm going to be honest with you. But what it did was it gave me the understanding to know what doors to approach. It gave me the discernment to walk away when that door didn't open to a world that I thought was right. And it gave me the power to knock the door down if I had to, for greater good. So you're going to get things here you can't get anywhere else. So be inspired by these educators and this experience that you've got. It's really special here. And I can't wait to see what you all do with your lives. Yeah, you're going to do great things, I know it.
Excellent. Well, everyone, please give it up for Mr. Elliott Haverlack.